I hate to tell you that I told you so, but there has been a somewhat steady decline in terms of active participation, as you can tell down here. The same applies to PSO2 New Genesis. There has been a very steady decline in active player base there as well. So by that logic, Bless Unleashed is going to fall victim to the very same decline in terms of active player participation. Now, NeoWiz has had a lot of success with Bless Unleashed and the entire Bless IP. When I did my first video on Bless Unleashed's population numbers roughly a month ago, I was genuinely surprised to see the game peaking as high as it was in terms of concurrent players. 30,000, 40,000, spiking all the way up to 76,377 several weeks ago. For a new MMO, especially given who was in charge of not only developing, but also publishing it and their history with Bless Online, I could not fathom how they had made as large a wave as they had. So, in an effort to delve more deeply into it, I decided to stream over 20 hours of Bless over the next week, as I was curious to see what about the game made it as popular as it was. And while I don't think that the game ultimately ended up being anything revolutionary, I could see that it ended up being somewhat of a basic yet traditional MMO, and that is not something to knock. Yet I did point out that much like PSO2 New Genesis and Swords of Legends Online before it, Bless Unleashed would go on to lose at least half of their active players over the course of its first month. Not because Bless Unleashed is a terrible game, rather it's only natural. It literally happens to every single MMO. People play through the content that is currently available, they then proceed to get bored, and then they move on. Yet there were players that would ardently debate that opinion, claiming that Bless Unleashed would break the MMORPG genre, that it would provide the genre its next big hit. And I know at this moment, some of you are just sitting there with your jaw completely agape, wondering what these guys must be on. And you know what? They are just fans of the game. There's nothing wrong with wanting your game to succeed. Now, fast forward a month, Bless Unleashed is currently averaging approximately 30,000 concurrent players per day, with the active concurrent players dropping day after day, from 35,000 players concurrently earlier this week to just over 30,000 as of today. Once again, this game was averaging 76,377 active concurrent players just last month. And as I am too dumb to do an exact calculation, I went ahead here and I decided that I would run this through a percentage calculator. This was an exact drop of 60.3%. Yeah, over 60%. Meaning that likely within the next week, the game is going to have lost 2 out of every 3 players. But don't misconstrue those numbers. These aren't active monthly numbers, and they definitely are not proof that players have permanently quit the game. What these numbers signify, rather, are merely players that no longer log in daily. There are plenty of players that have achieved max level, that have farmed gear, and ultimately left. There's no denying that. But at the same time, much like in WoW or Final Fantasy XIV, there are a multitude of players that are merely logging in weekly to run whatever weekly activities they have. Dungeons, raids. So these numbers are going to be a little bit skewed, but they are nevertheless proof of where the player base is headed. We're seeing a steady decline of several thousand concurrent players being logged in per week, and that is only going to continue to trend downwards. Bless just rolled out their latest update on September 15th, earlier this week specifically, which introduced not only the level 42 Twisted Void Spider Queen field boss, but also the Nightspire Caverns of Wrath dungeon for players over level 35. Yeah, and you know what, I mean, it's an update. Sure, not the scale of update that we're used to getting out of games like Final Fantasy XIV or Black Desert Online, with the former introducing hours of new narrative, dungeons, extreme trials, savage raids, or the latter introducing brand new classes, awakenings, entire areas, or features. But if Swords of Legends Online is anything to go off of, introducing a dungeon here and there really isn't going to do much to revitalize a population, let alone breathe new life into it. I'm not complaining though. Again, an update is an update, and it's good to see that Bless Unleashed is continuing to push out content for players to consume. But going off of the population numbers, when the update actually rolled out on September 15th, the player base did not spike at all. As a matter of fact, the 15th saw less players logged in concurrently than the day before it, the day before the update even rolled out, and the day after saw an even steeper decline. Evidently, the player base really didn't think much of the update, or at the very least, it didn't pique player interest enough to warrant players logging back in to test the content out. Now, I did notice that over on their Steam page, the Founders Packs, the packs that players could purchase before the game went live to support the game, to acquire unique goodies players wouldn't be able to after the game launched, are available to purchase right now. The Ultimate Founders Pack for $80, the Exalted Founders Pack for $40, and the Deluxe Founders Pack for $20. However, as of September 16th, NeoWiz went and introduced 2 additional packs to purchase, the Frontier Pack for $30, and the new Frontier Pack for $60. I took a look at what they both included, things like premium currency, amount, premium benefits, a title, in-game gold, an outfit. Pretty basic stuff, things that you might expect out of a pack like this. Granted, these packs have both been negatively reviewed due to players not actually receiving the items after purchasing those packs, but I don't see why NeoWiz would devote time and resources into such subpar packs anyway. I get that they want more money, but come on. Players are waiting for more content, not new packs to burn $60 on. But they're not required, and they're solely up to the player to purchase, so in the grand scheme of things, there's really nothing to complain about unless you purchase them yourself. Looking at reviews for the game over on Steam, I see that it is currently at 51% positive. I'm aware that initially, players bombarded the game with negative reviews. It made sense, there were thousands of people that refused to support NeoWiz or the Bless IP, and that hatred was 100% warranted, but those people are long gone, and looking at reviews over the last 2 weeks alone, we see that there have still been more negative reviews left than positive. More players are finding fault with the game than those that are finding success with it. Looking through reviews, I have somewhat of an understanding as of why. The first 20 or 30 levels are more of an introductory look at the game. They hook you by providing you with the semblance of a traditional MMO experience, but the further you progress into the game, the more glaringly obvious the issues become. Sure, the game has some solid graphics, the combat can be fun, and the world bosses are an incredibly fun experience to get to engage, but coupled with the poor UI, the supposed poor economic design, the very obvious predatory inventory system, and the lack of communication and transparency with the developers and the publisher, negative reviews are continuing to come in faster than positive. Again, like I've stated many times in the past, I have my issues with NeoWiz. They tried to contact me quite underhandedly to remove a Bless video I did talking negatively about their game. They scammed hundreds of thousands of players out of millions of dollars total. These 2 things alone were reason enough for me to never actively touch anything that they ever develop or publish in the future. But for people that didn't know or just didn't care about that, this game wasn't bad. In my opinion, the game itself at its core, once again, is not a bad game. It's not good, but it's simple, it's traditional, and that is what the market is looking for, evidently. I can see Bless Unleashed is on the road to quite the significant decline over the next month or two, where both PSO2 New Genesis and Swords of Legends Online have lost over 80% of their active players within the first 3 months. I assure you, Bless Unleashed will as well. It's only a matter of time until this happens, and the trajectory looks to be aligning quite closely with what I perceive to be the expected result roughly 2 months from now. Only time will tell, I guess, but I might check in again roughly 2 months from now and update everyone with whether I accurately gauged it or not.
Someday soon, I'm gonna make it.